Hey guys, it's Lotus and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to continue on with our read-along of Erha. Let's jump right in. Chapter 84. This venerable one stole a kiss and you don't even know. When Chuaning woke up, it was to the sight of Moran spacing out at the table with his cheek propped up in his hand, the reflection of the candle flame flickering in his pitch-black eyes, bright in the vacant gaze. ... He thought about getting up, but could feel no strength in his limbs and had to give up. The patterned lilac curtains wafted gently. He turned onto his side, watching Moran without a sound, but that silly boy only remained lost in thought, not at all noticing that his Shizun was awake. But who could blame him? Anyone who finds out that their lover has already had a son with some other woman would just be as shocked. Was Sha Sini really Chuaning's child? How could that be? Chuaning is so aloof in particular. Which woman would even be capable of catching his eye? Besides, if this whole thing is for real, then he must have had this child in the past life too. But in all the years they had spent together then, Chuaning couldn't have been further from what would expect of a married man, in his daily conduct and in between the sheets. But then, how else to explain this golden butterfly hair clasp? Moran banged his head against the table in anguish, just about to lose it from how confusing it all was. He wasn't that smart to begin with, and never could wrap his head around any twisty-turny things like this. The more he thought, the more his head hurt, until he finally grabbed his head and flopped onto the table with a despairing "Ugh!" and stayed there, unmoving. "Moran, what are you doing?" said an even, soothing voice, pleasant like the chime of scattering jade, with a slightly hoarse undertone. Moran bounced up instantly in surprise. "Shizun, you're awake?" Chuaning coughed lightly before looking up at him. Is this Rainbell Isles Inn? Yeah. Moran stood and went over to the bed, where he noticed a small tear on Chuaning's lower lip. His face immediately turned red as he thought back to how he had lost all control in his lust-induced haze and very nearly made a serious mistake. Seeing his perturbation, Chuaning asked, "What is it?" Nothing. Moran waved his hands and hastily changed the topic. "Anyway, Shizun suddenly fainted at Xuanyuan Pavilion, so I brought you here to rest. Then I got a physician to take a look at you and prescribe some medicine. And then heard you sleep-talking, got reminded of some past affairs, couldn't help myself and kissed you." But of course, he couldn't say such things. Moran's voice trailed off, his gaze uncharacteristically frantic, flustered even. Hearing that he was examined by a doctor, and seeing the strange expression on Moran's face, Chuaning felt his heart drop. Maybe he had found out about the poison that turns him small. His hands on the quilt tightened subconsciously as he asked in a hoarse voice, "What did the physician say?" "He said Shizun was affected by that holy weapon, and that's what made him faint." Moran hesitated for a moment before continuing. "Shizun, your spiritual core." "Don't worry about it. It's just a bit weaker than the average one." Moran blinked. He was thinking about how both Chushun and Chuaning had scars over their hearts, and considering the possibility of some kind of connection there. But the way Chuaning talks about it, that doesn't seem to be the case. He couldn't help asking, "But how? Shizun is so powerful. There's no way your spiritual core is frail by birth. When did it start?" "A long time ago. I was injured once, many years ago, and it's been like this ever since." Chuaning waved his hand indifferently. That's not what he was concerned about. Did he say anything else? Moran shook his head. "Nope." Chuaning looked thoughtfully at him in the candlelight's dim haziness. "Then what were you banging your head on the table for just now?" ... Moran tried and failed to hold it in, so he threw caution to the winds and took out the golden butterfly hair clasp from his sleeve, setting it in his palm. "I found this... ... on you." The hair clasp glinted in the light as Chuaning's heart sank lower and lower. So he had been found out after all. He sighed quietly. A few moments passed in silence, neither of them speaking. Finally, Chuaning closed his eyes and was just about to come clean when he heard Moran mumble in a small voice, "Shizun, Is Shidi truly your son? Chuaning, ... Did I raise you to be this dumb? No, okay. No, but seriously though, how can Moran Moran did like 1 + 1 = 3 in this case. He opened his eyes, the blood that had been frozen in his veins a moment ago beginning to circulate again. He was lost for words for a while as he stared silently at Mo Wei-yu, who stood by the bed with a complicated expression, and then, slowly, a clear verdict formed in Chuaning's gaze. Moron. Yeah, you tell him, Shizun. That's right. Chuaning lifted a hand and calmly took back the hair clasp before Moran could even react. Didn't I already tell you before? Why are you asking again? Moran buried his face in his hand. I'm just making sure. But despite Chuaning's repeated confirmations that Shidi was indeed his flesh and blood, Moran still didn't quite believe it. Shoving down his intense feelings of dismay, Moran decided to grill Shidi about it the next time he sees his little Shidi. Until those two actually acknowledged their blood ties to one another, he'd sooner die than believe it. Chuaning got some strength back in his limbs after a bit of rest, and moved to sit up in bed. My clothes. He ran his hand over his collars and paused, frowning. Why is it so disheveled? Moran. I don't know. Fearful that he might remember some fragments of what happened earlier, Moran hurriedly steered the topic away. Shizun, you must be hungry, right? I heard the food at this inn's pretty good, especially the Wensi tofu. Let's go down and get a bite. My treat. Chuaning shot him a cold look. What, with the money I gave you? But still brushed his voluminous sleeves and opened the door to go downstairs. Rainbow Isle's dishes were similar to Yangzhou's, light and refreshing, with a tendency towards sweetness, very agreeable to Chuaning's taste. The auction was over by now, and many of the attendants had already left, and the two of them had also requested a private booth, so there wasn't much of a need to wear cloaks to conceal their identities anymore. Taking their seats inside, a waiter came and poured them each a cup of Billochun green tea and handed them a menu before retreating. Shizun can look through the menu first. You can order. I'm pretty okay with all the Jiangnan-style dishes. Chuaning said as he lifted the cup and took a small sip of the tea. But his brows furrowed as soon as the tea touched his lips. ... Moran, what is it? Is it too hot? It's nothing. Maybe the weather is too dry. My lip is a bit cracked. Chuaning replied as he touched the corner of his lips uncertainly. Weird. When did that happen? Yeah, Moran, when did that happen? ... Moran lowered his head guiltily. It'll be a while before the food is ready, so Chuaning took the time to discuss what happened at Xuanyuan Pavilion with Moran. They had left early, so they didn't know who won the holy weapon in the end, but that shouldn't be too hard to find out just by asking around. An assortment of Yangzhou dishes began to cover the table as they talked. Chuaning felt like they had gone over all they could with what they knew, so he stopped asking questions to look over the food lining the table instead. He paused for a moment before lifting his eyelids slightly to look at the person across from him, whose smile was just a tad nervous. Chuaning asked, Have you been to Jiangnan before? Of course Moran had gone to see the apricot blossoms and misty rains of Jiangnan in his previous life, but he hadn't forgotten that he was only 17 right now and only joined Shisheng Peak 2-ish years ago, so he immediately shook his head. No? Chuaning's eyelashes lowered back down, expression neutral as he said in a clear voice, But you ordered all the best dishes. Only then did Moran realize that he had ordered every single dish according to Chuaning's taste. He was thinking only of making sure Chuaning eats well so that he can recover his strength, completely forgetting that he shouldn't be this familiar with these regional dishes. I worked in the kitchens of an entertainment house when I was young, so I've heard of these dishes even if I haven't had them before. Luckily, Chuaning didn't press the issue. Let's eat. Seafood was a big part of Jiangnan dishes, especially here on the Rainbow Isle, where there were baskets full of crab and shrimp and strings of fish everywhere the eye could see, so the square beach table was naturally laden with seafood. Crispy fried eel with sauce poured over, sweet and sour squirrel fish, crunchy on the outside and tender on the inside, steamed mantis shrimp, chrysanthemum sautéed sea snail, and braised silver carp. It smelled heavenly. And aside from those, the meat and vegetable dishes, and the desserts as well, were just as exquisitely made and elegantly plated. There was stewed crab meatballs, pork trotter jelly, shredded tofu simmered in chicken broth, soup dumplings, wensi tofu, and more. With his cheek propped up in one hand, Moran watched the waiter set down the last dish, osmanthus cake, then snuck a glance at Chuaning, wondering which dish he's gonna go for first. He pondered for a minute and secretly placed his bet. Definitely the meatballs. It's Chuaning's favorite Yangzhou dish after all. And, sure enough, as soon as the dishes were all out, his chopsticks reached unhesitatingly over in that direction. Moran sighed to himself. This person is always so predictable, be it eating things or doing things, always the... Plop. An adorably plump meatball landed in Moran's bowl. Same? Moran's head snapped up, the surprise from being favored so appearingly slow on his face. Shizun! Thanks for taking care of me these past few days. Wait, did he hear that right? Moran was bewildered. Did Chuaning just thank him for taking care of him? He had never said any such thing in the entirety of the last lifetime. Chuaning watched as the young man across from him slowly turned red, his eyebrows lifting and moving apart, and his eyes getting rounder and rounder, a tuft of hair curling up from his head to sway happily back and forth. He didn't quite know how to react, but Chu Zhengshi still had to preserve his dignity, so he took another lofty sip of tea. Oh my gosh, Moran is on cloud 9 right now. Ow, his lips. Truth be told, during those days he spent by Moran's side as Shasini, Chuaning had begun to feel a bit guilty. When he thought about it late at night, he had to admit that he really was too harsh of a person and had been overly stern with Moran. So he told himself that, when he gets back to normal, he won't carry on like that anymore, that he'll do better. When he met with Xuanji at the Peach Blossom Springs, Chuaning had hemmed and hawed for a good long while before finally forcing the words past his lips to ask how to be less intimidating to disciples. Xuanji was understandably taken aback before answering. First, you have to actually show them that you care. Show them that you care. Thinking that Moran had probably never had the meatballs before, Chuaning parted his lips to explain. Stewed crab meatballs are made with finely minced high-quality streaky pork, mixed with shrimp roe, crab meat, and crab roe and formed into meatballs. The meatballs are simmered in clear broth with bok choy, then finally arranged in a red clay pot for a colorful presentation. ... Moran was dumbfounded. What's he reciting the menu for? But Chuaning thought that patiently introducing new dishes to his disciple was a form of showing him care, and so in the course of the meal, Moran tried every dish in turn and got an earful of descriptions that sounded like they came straight out of Jiangnan recipes. If not for Chuaning's low, soothing voice, Moran probably would have flipped the table and left. Hey, did you hear yet? Lin Yi Rufeng Sek won the last item at the Xuanyuan Pavilion auction. The private booths were divided by bamboo screens, and the people in the next booth over were a bit loud, their conversation drifting easily over to Moran and Chuaning. Chuaning abruptly stopped introducing pork trotter jelly to exchange a look with Moran, and they both listened in with rapt attention. A rough-sounding male voice was talking. Of course I have. A holy weapon, right? 300 million gold, paid on the spot. I owe that price. It was more gold than I've ever seen in my entire life. Sheesh, is that all you care about? Don't you know that Rufeng sect also spent 50 million gold on a butterfly-boned beauty feast? Heavens, aren't those for eating or dual cultivating? Can't believe the biggest sect in the world would use such a reprehensible method of cultivation, and right out in the open too. How scandalous. Actually, Su Shang, using beauty feast is a perfectly reasonable cultivation method, not some primitive thing at all. They may look like us, but they're ultimately not human. It's no different from eating fairy fruits to advance your cultivation, so there's nothing really wrong with it when you get down to it. Huh, well, we'll just have to agree to disagree. Someone else laughed lightly. The one who bought the beauty feast is apparently some young disciple of Rufeng sect who rarely comes out. A something she. I heard he looks decent enough. Wouldn't have expected some guy like that to rely on screwing women to cultivate. If you ask me, Rufeng sect hasn't got long left. Still, another person chuckled. What's wrong with that? Who doesn't love a beauty? Then their conversation turned to roundabout debates on ethics and morality, nothing worth paying attention to. Chuaning repeated quietly, "So Ru Fengsek bought the holy weapon." "Sounds like it." Chuaning seemed troubled. "That makes things more difficult. We'll have to go to Ru Fengsek to investigate further." Moran awed as he remembered the issue, muttering, "Shizun used to be in Ru Fengsek." Don't want to go back?" Chuaning looked irritated at the mere mention of going back to Ru Fengsek, brows furrowing as he said, "They may be a famed sect in the upper cultivation world, but I once..." Before he could finish, there was a sudden commotion over by the main hall. Someone was yelling loudly, "Innkeep, we'll give you 500 gold. Get rid of these people and clear this place out immediately. Our young master is reserving the whole place today." Author's notes. Crab, steamed mantis, prawn, fish. All these descriptions come from Deng Banqiao's collection. All these phrases aren't common usage. To avoid misunderstandings, I'm making it clear that these are not my original constructions, and I'm stating where they came from. Adding on to what these people love and hate to eat the most. Chuaning loves stewed crab meatball and lotus crisp, hates mala hot pot, or spicy and numbing hot pot. Shizun doesn't like spicy things. Moran loves chili oil wontons, hates salted bean curd. Shuemeng loves mala hot pot, hates salted bean curd. So Moran and Shuemeng have some common food tastes. Shimei loves sao zimian, noodles with minced meat. Hates tanghulu, candied hawthorn fruit. Really? Hawthorn fruit is really good. Sanjiabang is really tasty. Oh, he doesn't like... I've never had actual tanghulu before, though. Like, the ones on the stick. I've had the hawthorn candied little, like, discs that they have at the supermarket. Those are really good. Ye Wangxi loves sweet and sour fish. Hates fried pancake with spring onion filling. He hates scallion pancake? Oh my gosh, but that's so good too. Mei Hanxue loves fish mint, hates pork. Hates pork? This is very good, very halal. Okay. Ru Fengsek's young master, who will appear in the next chapter, loves all kinds of meat, especially pork. This is very not good, very not halal. Hates wensi tofu. So hungry, I'm escaping. Thank you, Meatbun, for the descriptions of food. I'm really hungry now, too. Okay, so to recap chapter 84, Chuaning wakes up. He's kind of like, what happened? Why am I so disheveled? Moran's like, I don't know why your clothes are out of order. But more importantly, Shizun, is Shasuni really your child? And Chuaning was really about to come clean and tell him that he was Shasuni, but because Moran drew his own conclusions, Chuaning decided to just go along with it and said, "Yes, he is my son. I have told you this already." Now Moran is having an existential crisis because he's like, but when? When did Shizun have a wife? When did Shizun have Shasuni? He was with me the whole time in my past life. When did he have a kid? So he's kind of like low-key jealous and also like having a mental breakdown, but he definitely wants to question Shasuni the next time he sees him. And so they find out that Ru Fengsek bought both the Beauty Bone Feast as well as Bugui. So now, begrudgingly, Chuaning has to head to the Ru Fengsek to investigate the sword since it was purchased. Now, I wonder if Moran's gonna get that sword back because that did belong to him in his past life, and if Ru Fengsek managed to buy it, did that mean that someone in Ru Fengsek managed to, like, resonate with the sword? Because I thought they would only give it to someone who could resonate with the sword, which should only be Moran because he is the owner of it. Huh. Okay, and then also, while they're eating at an inn and just enjoying food and stuff, they hear that someone wants to kick everyone out of the inn and reserve the whole place. Let's see, it's probably Ru Fengsek's young master. Okay, let's continue on with the next chapter. Chapter 85. This venerable one isn't someone you can get rid of so easily with just 1,500 gold. The innkeeper's apologetic voice drifted over. Goodness, my lord is so generous. 500 just like that? This humble one is so flattered. But we really must be courteous to all our guests if we hope to keep doing business, so we can't just hustle everyone else out, you see. How about this? We have a spacious private room inside called the Gui Wu Pavilion. It's reserved just for honored guests of means like yourself, Let me show. She didn't even get to finish the sentence before there was a loud clattering of tables and chairs being overturned. What even is there to see? Who the hell cares about your gui wu returning fog pavilion or wu gui tortoise pavilion? God damn, what kind of shitty name? Don't want it. Get rid of them and we'll pay you 1,000. Ah, but my lord looks like such a scholarly, reasonable person. Surely he won't force such a difficult decision on this humble one, right? The innkeep lied through her teeth without so much as batting an eye, simpering coyly. There are really too many guests here already. If my lord dislikes Gui Wu Pavilion, I can certainly offer another room. It's a little smaller, but just as elegant, and I'll throw in an entertainment package with song and dance, free of charge. How's that? No, absolutely not. 1,500. Tell them all to get lost. The boor's voice bellowed. Quit dragging your feet. Our young master will be cross if the place isn't ready when he gets here. Wow. 1,000 gold might be a lot to the average person, but it was a laughable amount to the once emperor of the mortal realm. Just the trinkets he used to casually throw at Song Chu Tong to humor her were priceless treasures. And so his eyes were round with amusement as he chewed idly on his chopstick, laughing to Chuaning in a low voice. Shizun, check it out. That dude thinks he can get rid of us with just 1,500. Chuaning shot him a glance, then lifted the bamboo curtain to look downstairs. There was a crowd in the main hall. They were dressed in plain clothes that concealed their sect, but every one of them had a high-quality blade glinting at their waist, and a fey wolf slobbering by their side. The value of the blades were indeterminate, while the fey wolves had a market price but were next to impossible to come by. Getting just one was already no small feat for a minor sect. For these people to each have one, they were clearly from a prestigious sect. All the guests stopped eating to stare apprehensively at them. It was so quiet inside the hall that one could hear a pin drop. Suddenly, a white blur flashed into the inn, bright as snow. There was a beat of silence as everyone took in what it was. Then a burst of frantic clamoring as all of them scrambled backwards away from it, with the more easily spooked people shrieking, "Monster!" It was a snow-white fey wolf, at least 3 people tall, eyes crimson as blood, coat glossy as satin, fangs the length of a grown man's arm glistening coldly. But on that massive, vicious beast sat a handsome young man with an arrogant expression, casually reclined with one leg over the other. He was dressed in a set of sleek hunting gear over scarlet raiments with gold-embroidered sleeves, and had on a silver helmet emblazoned with a lion swallowing the sun, a lock of red tassel hanging from its crown. His weapon, a jasper bow, laid over his knees. As soon as those showy cultivators saw him, all of them dropped to one knee with hand pressed to their chest, saying in unison, "Greetings, the young master!" All right. The young man waved his hand, looking irritated. Can't even take care of a little thing like this? Greeting my ass. Puh. Moran couldn't help laughing as he remarked quietly to Chuaning, "If they're greeting ass, then doesn't that make him the ass?" ... The young man sitting atop the soft fur at the fey wolf's nape looked cross indeed. Where's the boss of this shabby place? The innkeeper was frightened, but still stepped up with The innkeeper was frightened, but still stepped up with forced calmness, smiling apologetically. "That would be this humble one, my lord." Oh. He shot her a glance. "I'm going to stay here tonight, but I'm not used to having this many people around. Have a talk with them, I'll make up your losses." "But my lord..." "I know it puts you in a tight spot. Here, take this and give each table an apology on my behalf. And if anyone really doesn't want to leave, then just let them be." He tossed the innkeeper a pouch, and she opened it to find it filled with gold 9-turn returning pills. These pills allow the taker's cultivation to grow in leaps and bounds for 10 days, and a single pill cost more than 2,000 gold on the market. The innkeeper was shocked by this extravagant display at first, and then discreetly breathed a sigh of relief. No cultivator would turn down something like this. With these pills, it would be perfectly acceptable to ask everyone to leave. The innkeeper went around the tables apologizing and compensating, and the young man yawned before glaring down at his attendants. "The lot of you are all useless. Do I really have to do everything myself?" The attendants looked at one another. Then there was a scattering of, "Gongzi is ever brilliant and indomitable." The guests dispersed in short order. Other than Chuaning and Moran, who didn't care for money or cultivation pills, Everyone else accepted the recompense and left with 0 complaints to go stay elsewhere instead. The innkeeper reported back, "Gongzi, everyone left, but 2 guests declined, saying it's already late and one of them is unwell, so they don't want to go elsewhere." "Never mind them, no need to hassle an invalid." The young man waved his hand, unconcerned, long as they don't bother me. Chuaning, the invalid, ... The innkeeper beamed and said warmly, "Gongzi, such a kind person. It's getting late. Would Gongzi like to rest or have something to eat first?" The young man replied, "I'm hungry. No need for rest. Bring me a meal." "Of course, my humble store will certainly bring Gongzi only the best. Our chef's signature dishes are crab, shay fun, meatball, pork trotter jelly." Angry? Angry meatball? The young man was clearly not from the south and didn't much care for southern dishes. He blinked at the name of the dish, then waved his hand with a frown. Pass. Can't even understand these ridiculous names. Maybe he was just some insanely rich merchant and not a high-born young master after all. Innkeep. Then what would Gongzi like? We will do our utmost. Easy. The young man gestured at his attendants. 5 caddies of beef for each of them, 10 for me, and then a caddy of soju and 2 legs of lamb. That'll do, just to tide us over. Shouldn't eat too much late at night anyway. Moran. Wow. He turned to Chuaning, thinking to make fun of the guy's bottomless appetite, only to find Chuaning staring fixedly at the young man with a hazy, indecipherable expression. Moran asked absently, "Shizun seems to know him?" He was just offhandedly asking, and hadn't expected Chuaning to actually know him. Moran tripped over his words in surprise. "What? Then who is he?" "The only son of Rufeng sect's leader," Chuaning said softly. "Nang Gongzi." No wonder Chuaning knew him. He used to be with Lin Yi Rufeng sect after all. Of course he would know what the sect leader's son looked like. And it was also no wonder that he himself didn't know the guy, since he was already dead from some illness when he was going around butchering Rufeng sect in the previous lifetime. Back then, he had thought that the son of the sect leader must have been some sickly cripple, but the guy in front of him now was healthy, lively, and had ego to spare. How could a guy like this die of illness? Some kind of sudden plague, maybe? Downstairs, Nang Gongzi was digging in happily, inhaling all 10 caddies of beef and both legs of lamb in no time at all, and gulping down no few bowls of wine on top. Moran watched speechlessly from upstairs. "Shizun, isn't Rufeng sect all about refinement and stuff? What's up with their young master then? He's even less proper than our Shui Mengmeng." Chuaning shoved his head away from where it had nosed over, even though his own face was still turned to peer at the scene downstairs. "Don't just make up nicknames for your fellow disciples as you like." Moran laughed, heh, and was just about to say something else when he paused, suddenly realizing something. Chuaning's finger was pressed against his forehead, pushing him away, and his sleeve draping softly over his face like a wisp of mist in the process. It was made of some kind of extremely light material, like silk or satin, but not quite, and felt both warm and cool, almost like water. Back in the room earlier, when he was reeling with desire and couldn't get Chuaning's robes off, he thought it was just on too tight. But looking carefully at it now, Moran realized that the robes were actually made of frozen mist silk from Kunlun Tashui Palace. Kunlun Tashui Palace was the most aloof and detached sect in the upper cultivation realm. Its disciples were inducted at 5 and were sent into secluded cultivation in the sacred land of Kunlun only 1 year later, where they must stay until they managed to cultivate their spiritual cores. Although spiritual core was innate and the cultivation was just to awaken it, it was still a long process that often took 10 to 15 years. Since others were barred entry during this time, the disciples' needs became a problem. Food was one thing, since the sacred land was adjacent to the Wangmu Lake, so the Tashui Palace disciples could always go fishing for food, but it's not like they could just weave their own clothes. And so, the frozen mist silk was created. Clothes made from this silk were not only light as mist, they were also naturally enchanted to be unstainable by common dust and grime, so as to not need washing unless splashed by things like blood. But the most amazing property of this silk was its ability to morph in accordance with the wearer's body, which was absolutely necessary for the disciples of Tashui Palace, who entered the sacred land as small children at 5 and couldn't leave until they were young adults of 15 or 20. Clothes made of frozen mist silk would grow with them, so they had fitting clothes during those long years. But what was Chuaning doing wearing robes made of this special material? Moran squinted, a spark flashing through his mind. He suddenly felt like something was off, like he had been mistaken about something from the very start. But what was it? Probably Chuaning is wearing this because he keeps changing size between Shasini and himself, and so he can't really afford to constantly change robes or carry spare clothes. So he wears the frozen mist silk robe so that it just kind of expands and shrinks when he grows or shrinks, you know? But of course, Moran is still under the guise of thinking that Shasini is Chuaning's son, because he's kind of dumb like that. Okay. Excuse me, may I ask where the innkeeper is? Moran's thoughts were interrupted by a confident yet friendly and courteous voice. He looked down to see the group Rufeng sect disciples that were at Xuanwan Pavilion earlier. The one at their lead was leaning halfway inside, heron-patterned mantle lightly adrift as he held the door curtain open with his sword. Aren't they Ye Wangshi's people? Moran perked up immediately. Rufeng sect had 72 cities, so its disciples often didn't even know one another, and Nang Gongzi was sitting by himself in a private room with his back to the door, so the group of newcomers glanced over their fellow disciples of the same sect inside the inn, dressed in plain clothes, and didn't recognize any of them. Ye Wangxi versus Nang Gongzi. Was this sure to be entertaining? My apologies, but we've already been reserved for tonight. The innkeeper hurried over while silently cursing herself for forgetting to close shop. Please look elsewhere. We're truly so sorry. The young man at the lead looked troubled. Sigh, what to do? We've already checked the other inns. They're all full up. There's a frail young lady with us who's in dire need of some rest, so we were hoping to find somewhere for her to get a good night's sleep. May I trouble you to ask if the one who reserved this inn will consider letting us have a few rooms? That he probably won't be willing. The young man bowed and implored politely. Please guess anyway. It's all right if he's unwilling. The innkeeper didn't even get a chance to respond when one of Nan Gongzi's attendants at the table nearby slapped the table and stood up in a rage. What is there to ask? Get out! Out! Don't disturb our young master while he's eating. That's right! Aren't you embarrassed? Taking a woman to bed while wearing Rufeng sect's uniform, dragging your sect name through the mud. The young man hadn't expected such a misunderstanding, turning bright red as he said indignantly, Why do you slander us so? We of Rufeng sect have always been principled and virtuous. Of course we wouldn't conduct any such impropriety. This young lady was kindly saved by a young master. How dare you speak such nonsense? Your young master? Nang Gongzi's attendant glanced toward the private room, and, seeing that his young master was still drinking his wine, taking no notice of them, took it as silent permission to chase them out, so he relaxed and snickered loudly. Everyone knows there's only one young master of Rufeng sect, so I wonder who this young master of yours is. That would be me, Ye Wangxi of Rufeng sect. A gentle, graceful voice sounded from outside the door. Every hand in the room turned toward the door. Ye Gongzi! Ye Wangxi was dressed in all black, his handsome face taking on a note of delicacy in the candlelight. He stepped inside, followed by a veiled woman with nervous eyes, Song Chu Tong. ... The vein at Moran's temple throbbed viciously at the mere sight of her. Her again. Just his luck. Nan Gongzi's attendants were momentarily taken aback by Ye Wangxi's appearance. Then contempt surfaced on the faces of some of the less composed ones. Ye Wangxi was the adopted son of Rufeng sect's chief elder, and used to be attached to the sect's Shadow City. As implied by the name, the Shadow City specialized in training the Shadow Guard. The leader of Rufeng sect was originally having him trained to be the next leader of the Shadow Guard, but his cultivation nature turned out to be unsuitable for the cultivation method of the Shadow Guard, so he was reassigned to the main city and now acted as the sect leader's right-hand man. Due to his upbringing as a Shadow Guard, Ye Wangxi habitually kept a low profile, and very few people knew of him. However, the sect leader regarded him extremely highly, so much so that, in recent years, there had even been rumors within the sect that Ye Wangxi was actually the sect leader's bastard child. Perhaps because of this, Nang Gongzi, the legitimate heir, was on bad terms with Ye Wangxi. Since their young master disliked him, it was only natural that the attendants had low opinions of him as well. They were junior to Ye Gongzi and technically shouldn't offend him, but they were Nan Gongsi's personal attendants and reported directly to him. So after a long moment of awkward, frozen silence, a less reserved one of the attendants laughed coldly and said, "Well, yeah, Gongzi, please take your leave. I'm afraid there's no place for you here." Gongzi, since they've already said there's no place, let's go look elsewhere. Song Chu Tong tugged at the hem of Ye Wangshi's clothes with slender fingers, a note of fright in her voice. And this place is so expensive, I dare not waste any more of Gongzi's money. Upstairs, Moran rolled his eyes. It's always that weak, pitiful-sounding tone with her. She had tricked him with it back then, and now she was tricking Ye Wangshi the same way. Ye Wangshi was just about to speak when an enormous white shadow darted out from the inner room, heading straight for Ye Wangshi's back. Song Chutong called out in alarm, "Gongzi, watch out!" "Ow, woo!" Howling loudly, a snow-white fey wolf bolted to Ye Wangshi and started running circles around him excitedly. ... Everyone was silent. Ye Wangshi looked down at the 3 people tall fey wolf that was currently rolling around on the floor stickily, surprised. Nao Baijin? It was Nan Gongzi's fey wolf mount named Nao Baijin. Cornelian platinum white gold, for its scarlet eyes the color of cornelian, its coat white as snow, and the gold of its claws. If Nao Baijin was here, then so was Nan Gongzi. Ye Wangshi obliged the big furry head that was nudging over for pats while looking around. Sha. The bamboo curtain was lifted by a hand extending from a scarlet gold embroidered sleeve. Leaning idly against the wall of the private room with his arms crossed, irritated expression half covered by the bamboo curtain, and still holding a bottle of wine in hand, Nan Gongzi shot Ye Wangshi a glance and sneered. Interesting. Why do you always show it wherever I go? With the way you're always trailing after me. Where am I to put my face if people start gossiping about us? Author's notes. Wolf Cub. Wolf Cub. I'll give you 500. Leave. Pupper. No. Wolf Cub. I'll give you 1,000. Leave. Pupper. No. So is Nan Gongzi supposed to be the wolf cub and Moran is supposed to be the pupper? Cute. Okay, so end of chapter. Oh wait, no, there's more. Wait. Wolf cub, I'll give you 1,500. Are you going to leave? Pupper, in my previous life, this entire world was this venerable once. You can shut it, you short-lived bastard. Wolf cub, you dare insult me? Beep, beep, beep. Awoo! Pupper, woof, woof, arf, arf, arf. Lady boss, hello, animal control. There are 2 rabid dogs fighting in my shop. Yes, one's a husky, another's an Alaskan. Yes, yes, yes. That Alaskan is also carrying a Samoyed called Nao Baijin. Yes, all 3 look like they've never gotten their rabies shot. Very dangerous. Can you imagine though, like calling animal control and then just having Moran and Nan Gongzi just like dragged out of the shop? Deserved though, honestly, with the way they cause a lot of destruction and commotion, deserved. But yeah, so end of chapter 85. So to recap, Rufeng Sect's young master, Nan Gongzi, arrives, trying to buy out and reserve the entire shop. And so he offers cultivation pills, which most of the cultivators take, but Moran and Chuanin decide to stay. So they are listening in on what Nan Gongzi is doing here. And he's just, you know, wolfing and chowing down on some grub. And they're like, okay, well, he's here, but if he's here, is he gonna bump into Ye Wangshi? Yes, he does. He does bump into Ye Wangshi. Ye Wangshi comes back from Xuanwan Pavilion with his group, and they get into a bit of a tense altercation, because Ye Wangshi is also really highly regarded as a young master and right-hand man of Rufeng Sect's sect leader. So, what's gonna happen in the next chapter when they confront each other? Does Ye Wangshi, like, we know that Nan Gongzi does not like Ye Wangshi because he feels that he's threatening his position, but how does Ye Wangshi feel about Nan Gongzi? We'll have to find out in the next read-along, but other than that, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you guys next time. Bye-bye!